Tonight, you'll discover a powerful secret that Buddhist monks have used for centuries to quiet the restless mind and find deep, meaningful rest. I'm going to share 10 remarkable Zen stories that have helped millions of people finally silence their racing thoughts and drift into the most peaceful sleep of their lives. Each story holds a hidden key that unlocks your mind's natural power to release stress and worry. What sets this apart from regular sleep meditation is that these teachings work even if you've never meditated before, even if your mind won't stop racing, even if you've tried everything else. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within." Do not look for it outside yourself. Over the next 3 hours, you'll uncover the true meaning of this and learn how to bring it into your own life. As we explore stories of empty boats, wise monks, and surprising insights, you'll begin to notice something incredible. Your tension will start to fade. Your thoughts will calm down, and you'll effortlessly drift into a deep state of relaxation. So, get comfortable. Adjust your pillow and let your body sink deeply into the bed. Take a slow, deep breath with me now. As you exhale, feel that you've taken the very first step on a timeless journey that's been waiting just for you. Now, let's begin with our first music story. Our first story unfolds beside a tranquil river, offering a lesson about how we respond to life's challenges. This is the tale of the empty boat. There was once a man who loved to row his boat on a calm river. He found deep happiness drifting along the water, soaking in the peace and solitude of nature. Every evening, as the sun dipped and bathed the world in golden light, he would set out on a quiet journey with his boat. One evening, as he gently paddled and enjoyed the calm, he saw another boat coming straight toward him. At first, he called out kindly, "Please, be careful." But the other boat didn't change direction. When it kept coming closer, the man's frustration grew, and he shouted, "Move aside, you're going to hit me." What had been a peaceful evening quickly turned tense as he watched the boat approach with rising anxiety. When the two boats finally collided, he was ready to lash out at the careless boater. But as he looked closer, he realized the boat was empty. No one was inside. It was simply drifting with the current. In that moment, his anger vanished completely, and he felt foolish for shouting at an empty boat. What had changed wasn't the situation. The boats still collided. What changed was his understanding. There was no intention behind the collision, no carelessness or disrespect to justify his anger. As the Buddha said, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." This deep truth shines through perfectly in the story of the empty boat. Our anger, frustration, and resentment often don't come from events themselves, but from the stories we tell ourselves about the intentions behind those events. Why do we react this way? In Zen Buddhism, this reactivity arises from our ego's attachment, our deep need to defend and prove the separate self. The driver who cuts you off might be rushing to the hospital. The coworker who didn't greet you may be dealing with a family emergency. The friend who hasn't replied might be battling depression. Yet, our ego quickly fills these empty boats with assumptions of malice, carelessness, or disrespect. In Zen practice, we develop awareness of this pattern through mindfulness. By watching our thoughts without immediately identifying with them, we catch ourselves filling empty boats. We notice the physical signs of anger, the tight chest, rapid breath, narrowed vision, and use these as mindfulness bells, reminding us to pause and reflect. The 13th century Zen master Dogen taught that to study the Buddha way is to study the self, and to study the self is to forget the self. When we forget the self, releasing the ego's need to assert and defend, we see empty boats for what they really are, simply events flowing in the vast river of existence, without personal meaning or intent to harm. Buddha said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned." Every time we respond with anger, we suffer first and most. By recognizing the empty boats in our daily lives, we free ourselves from this self-inflicted pain. Buddha said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Every time we respond with anger, we suffer first and most. By recognizing the empty boats in our daily lives, we free ourselves from this self-inflicted pain. Do not seek it outside yourself. The calm we desire is already within reach when we stop filling empty boats with stories spun by our ego. Now, let us journey to a mountain path where a monk faces an unexpected challenge in The Monk and the Tiger. Once upon a time, in a quiet monastery deep in the forest, lived a wise and peaceful monk. Each day he took long walks through the woods, meditating on nature's beauty and the Buddha's teachings. He found deep peace in the forest solitude, connecting fully with the present moment and the world around him. One day, while walking along a narrow mountain trail, he suddenly heard a loud, frightening roar. A tiger's roar echoed through the trees. He froze, heart pounding, and when he turned, he saw a large, fierce tiger charging toward him through the dense underbrush. The tiger's eyes locked onto him, its powerful body moving with terrifying speed. The monk's first instinct was to run, and he did. He sprinted down the path, his robes flying behind him as the tiger closed in. Desperate to escape, he spotted a vine hanging over the edge of a cliff. Without hesitation, he grabbed it and began to climb down, hoping to find safety below. As he descended, clutching the vine tightly, he looked down and his heart sank. Below, another tiger paced at the cliff's base, waiting for him to fall. He was trapped, no way up, no way down. Dangling from the vine with a tiger above and one below, the monk's situation seemed hopeless. But as he hung there, something caught his eye. Sprouting from the rocky cliffside, just within his finger's reach, grew a small wild strawberry plant with one plump crimson berry. In that moment, the monk's thoughts drifted away from the tigers, his fear, and his trapped state. Instead, he carefully stretched out his hand, picked the strawberry delicately, and brought it to his lips. As he bit into it, he savored the burst of sweetness. The flavor was utterly delightful. In that fleeting instant, nothing else mattered but the pure delight of the strawberry's taste, vivid, refreshing, and complete. Even though peril loomed on all sides, the monk discovered serenity within that one conscious breath of the now. He realized he had no control over the situation itself, but he still had the power to embrace the richness of the present moment. A gentle smile spread across the monk's face as he realized that this brief taste of sweetness was a gentle reminder of the beauty that life offers, even in the midst of danger. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." This timeless wisdom forms the essence of the monk and the tiger tale, revealing a deep insight into our shared human experience. Much of our lives are lived hanging between two tigers, the sorrows and scars of yesterday, and the worries and uncertainties of tomorrow. But why is it so hard to simply remain here, in the now? According to Zen teachings, the human mind was shaped for survival, always alert, always anticipating danger, forever preparing for what might come. What once gave us an edge in survival now becomes a spiritual obstacle, pulling us away from the only real moment we possess, the one happening right now. Our thinking mind often whispers that peace lies in fixing old wounds or securing tomorrow's comfort. But the truth is, true stillness is only ever found in the present. Reflect for a moment. How much of your mental turmoil is born from reliving moments long gone? The unkind words you regret, the missed chances you wish you could redo, the heartbreak that left a lasting ache. These are the tigers looming above. And how often does anxiety creep in from fearing what's yet to come? A looming deadline, a pending diagnosis, financial uncertainty. These are the tigers waiting below. Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once shared, The present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. This is the essence of the strawberry, the quiet joy available to us even when life feels uncertain. It doesn't deny difficulty. It simply offers a new way to hold it. This strawberry might be sunlight brushing across your face, a child's spontaneous laughter, the comforting simplicity of a meal, the feel of your blanket, or even the gentle rise and fall of your breath. These small blessings are always within reach, but we miss them when our minds are tangled in the claws of yesterday and tomorrow. Zen encourages us to practice what the Japanese call ichigo ichi, one time, one encounter, a reminder that every moment is rare and cannot be repeated. When we truly see how sacred each present breath is, we naturally choose to show up fully for it, no matter the circumstances. The Buddha once said, "The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly." This insight gently invites us to notice our mental habits. Are you caught in mental reruns of the past or pre-playing scenes from an imagined future? Can you gently return your awareness to the strawberry, the sensory simplicity of now? And so tonight, as your mind wanders to the weight of yesterday or the responsibilities of tomorrow, remember the monk and the strawberry. What sweetness might you notice in this moment? Perhaps it's the soft rhythm of your breath, the cozy pressure of your blanket, or simply the hush of nighttime stillness. The Buddha also taught, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. As we pause to savor these small joys on the road of life, we come to realize peace is not a reward that waits once the tigers are gone. It's already here, even while they growl. Up next, a powerful story that sheds light on the nature of our suffering through a timeless Zen metaphor. This is the story of the two arrows. On a serene day, the Buddha sat quietly with his disciples in a forest clearing where the trees gently swayed in the soft breeze and birds sang harmoniously. It was common for the Buddha to share his teachings about the nature of suffering and the journey toward enlightenment. On this occasion, a disciple troubled by life's burdens approached him with a pressing question. "Master," the disciple began, bowing with respect, "I struggle to understand why suffering seems so constant in our lives. No matter where I go, pain seems to follow. Why is that? And how can one find peace amid such persistent hardship?" The Buddha looked at him kindly, recognizing the confusion and frustration in his eyes, a question many had pondered before. "Let me offer some clarity," the Buddha responded gently. "Picture a person struck by an arrow. This arrow causes pain, an unavoidable reality. This is what we call the first arrow." The disciples nodded in comprehension, realizing this first arrow represents the inevitable challenges life throws at us: illness, injury, loss. Now, imagine that after the first arrow strikes, a second arrow hits the person. But this second arrow is not physical, it is crafted by the mind. It is the wave of anger, fear, sorrow, or frustration that follows the initial pain. This is the second arrow. The Buddha paused, allowing the meaning to settle deeply. "Understand this," he continued. "The first arrow is unavoidable. It symbolizes the natural pains we all endure. The second arrow, however, is optional. It's the extra suffering caused by how we react mentally to pain." The disciple listened attentively as the Buddha explained that often, when faced with physical or emotional pain, the first arrow, we exacerbate our suffering by layering on mental anguish. We get angry, bitter, or anxious, which only deepens our wounds. Instead of embracing the pain, we resist it, which increases our suffering. The Buddha emphasized, when struck by the first arrow, we should acknowledge it as an inevitable part of life. But equally important is recognizing the second arrow. This second arrow is self-inflicted. Through mindfulness and insight, we have the power to prevent it from piercing us. The disciple, now beginning to grasp the teaching, asked, Master, how do we avoid this second arrow? How can we stop our minds from intensifying our suffering? The Buddha smiled warmly. By cultivating mindfulness, we can watch our thoughts and feelings without clinging to them. When pain arises, we can accept it non-judgmentally. We acknowledge that pain is part of existence, but we don't have to dwell on it or create additional suffering through resistance or negativity. This is how we prevent the second arrow from striking. The Buddha proclaimed, "Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is a choice." This profound yet straightforward statement distills the essence of the two arrows parable. Pain will inevitably find us, but we hold remarkable control over the degree of suffering we endure. Why do we so often inflict second arrows upon ourselves? Zen teachings point to deeply ingrained mental patterns that cause this. The first is aversion, the mind's automatic recoil from discomfort. When pain comes, we instinctively push it away, building mental tension that worsens the original pain. Second is identification, mistaking ourselves for the pain, thinking, "I am in pain," rather than recognizing pain is present. This subtle shift is crucial. Fully identifying with pain lets it consume us, dominating our entire reality. Observing it with some distance turns it into just one piece of a broader experience. The third is proliferation, the mind's habit of endlessly spinning thoughts about what we feel. A simple headache can spiral into a flood of worries. What if it's serious? What if it worsens? Why me? I won't be able to concentrate at work tomorrow. Each anxious thought acts like another second arrow piercing us repeatedly. These mental patterns usually happen without our awareness, which is why the Buddha emphasized mindfulness as the key to healing. Through the practice of mindfulness, we develop the ability to recognize these mental patterns as they arise. We learn to distinguish between the unavoidable first arrow, the actual pain, and the optional second arrows, the mental reactions we create. The Buddha said, "What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create." This teaching highlights the powerful creative force of our thoughts. Each time we respond to pain with resistance, identification, and mental proliferation, we generate additional suffering. But when we approach pain with mindful awareness and acceptance, we open the door to healing and personal growth. Think about a personal setback, maybe a rejection, failure, or loss. The first arrow represents the event itself and the natural feelings it stirs. The second arrows are the extra thoughts like, "This always happens to me," overgeneralizing, "I will never succeed," catastrophizing, "I should have done better," self-blame, or "This isn't fair," resistance to reality. Each of these thoughts intensifies the suffering beyond the original disappointment. Zen teacher Charlotte Yoko Beck said, "Pain is not something to be avoided. It is something to be fully experienced without resistance." This is the essence of skillfully working with the first arrow. We do not deny pain or pretend it isn't there. Instead, we bring a curious, compassionate attention to the experience itself, without layering it with second arrows of judgment, denial, or elaboration. The Buddha taught, if you are heading in the right direction, just keep walking. The right direction means facing our pain, not fleeing from it. By turning toward difficult experiences with mindfulness, we cultivate the ability to be present with them skillfully, without piling on second arrows. Tonight, as you become aware of sensations in your body or emotions arising in your mind, can you tell the difference between the first and second arrows? Can you meet life's inevitable pains, physical discomfort, emotional vulnerability, or mental unrest with gentle awareness rather than resistance? As the Buddha said, the way is not out there in the sky. The way is found within the heart. The path to freedom from suffering is not about escaping our human experience, but about meeting it with wisdom and compassion. Now, let us turn to a story that reveals the universal nature of loss and how understanding it can bring peace. The parable of the mustard seed. Long ago, there was a young woman named Kisa. She was gentle, compassionate, and devoted to her family. But tragedy struck when her only child, a dearly loved son, became ill and died. Overwhelmed by grief, Kisa refused to accept his death. Clutching his lifeless body, she wandered from house to house, begging for someone who could bring him back to life. At every door, she pleaded, "Please help me. My son is dead. Is there anyone who can heal him?" But everyone turned her away, saying there was nothing they could do. Her sorrow deepened with each rejection, her heart aching more with every step. One day, Kisa's journey led her to a wise elder who said kindly, "Go to the Buddha. Perhaps he can help you." With a spark of hope, Kisa hurried to the Buddha, who sat calmly beneath a Bodhi tree surrounded by his disciples. She fell to her knees, placing her son's body before him, and begged, "Master, please bring my child back to life. This pain is unbearable." The Buddha looked upon her with deep compassion and understanding. He saw her suffering, but knew she needed to learn a profound truth about life and death. After a moment, he spoke softly, "I can help you, Kisa, but first, bring me a mustard seed." Kisa set out immediately. At the first house, she knocked and explained her request. "Please, may I have a mustard seed? It must be from a home untouched by death." The woman answered sadly, "I'm sorry, but my husband passed away last year." Kisa thanked her and moved on. At the next, "I'm sorry, my mother died many years ago." House after house, she encountered stories of lost mothers, fathers, siblings, children. As the day wore on, Kisa realized that death was not unique to her. It was a universal part of life affecting every family. At sunset, she returned to the Buddha empty-handed, but with a new understanding. She knelt before him, her heart no longer desperate, but accepting. "Master," she said, "I could not find a single home untouched by death. Every family has suffered loss. Now I understand that death is part of life, and no one escapes it." The Buddha nodded gently. "Kisa, you have learned a vital truth. Death is inevitable, and suffering comes to all who cling to this world. But by accepting life's impermanence, you can find peace. Your grief is not yours alone. It is shared by all beings. This is the nature of existence." With this, Kisa realized her suffering, though intense, was not isolated. She had been blinded by her personal sorrow, but now saw that all people experience loss. This insight allowed her to release her son's body and bury him with dignity, finally finding peace amid life's inevitable changes. The Buddha taught, "Everything that begins must end. Make peace with this, and all will be well." This teaching lies at the heart of Kisa's journey. Her story reveals one of life's hardest but most liberating truths. Nothing lasts forever, and resisting this only deepens suffering. Why do we cling so tightly to permanence? Zen Buddhism points to this craving as the root of suffering. We want the pleasant to stay pleasant, beauty to remain unchanged, and above all, those we love to stay with us forever. This craving creates a tension that manifests as suffering. Like Kisa, we often respond to loss with denial. We refuse to accept what has happened and expend great effort trying to undo the irreversible. This denial is a natural part of grief, but when we get stuck in it, healing is blocked. The Buddha did not immediately lecture Kisa on impermanence. Instead, he guided her to discover the truth herself, a much deeper teaching. The Buddha said suffering's root is attachment. For Kisa, her attachment to her son was more than love. It was clinging that could not accept his death. Her search for a mustard seed from a death-free home showed her that attachment to permanence is futile. Every home, no matter how joyful or blessed, has faced death. This universal loss connects us all in what Buddhists call the fellowship of suffering. When we truly see that loss touches everyone, our grief, though still painful, feels less isolating. We see ourselves as part of the larger flow of human experience, not alone in tragedy. The 14th century Zen master Basui said, "To see the truth, leave desire behind." Without letting go of desire, you cannot see the truth. Kisa's desire to bring her son back blocked her from seeing impermanence. Only when she gave up this impossible wish could she begin to accept reality and find peace. Interestingly, the Buddha didn't comfort Kisa by promising an afterlife or reunion with her son in another world. Instead, he encouraged her to embrace the natural order. Everything born must eventually pass away, and all unions will eventually part. This acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about aligning with reality, which is where true healing begins. The Buddha explained this clearly. The problem is, you assume you have plenty of time. This stark reminder of life's fleeting nature invites us to cherish every moment and every connection, understanding that nothing lasts forever. Instead of causing despair, this realization can deepen our gratitude and presence. Reflecting on your own losses, whether people, relationships, jobs, or life phases, can you see the lesson of the mustard seed? Do you recognize how resisting impermanence might amplify your pain? Can you find solace in the universality of impermanence? Can accepting this truth ease your suffering, not by lessening your loss, but by placing it within the vast shared human experience? As the Buddha taught, ultimately only three things matter: how deeply you loved, how kindly you lived, and how gracefully you released what was not meant for you. Our next story highlights the wisdom of withholding judgment and maintaining calm in the face of life's constant changes. This is the tale of the farmer and the horse. Once, in a small, quiet village, there lived a humble farmer. Known by his neighbors for his diligence and calm nature, he had a modest farm and just one horse that helped him with daily chores, from plowing to carrying heavy loads. Though his possessions were few, the farmer was content. One day, his horse ran away. Upon waking, the farmer found the stable empty. Hearing this, his neighbors rushed over, offering sympathy. "What terrible misfortune! How will you manage without your horse?" they said. Yet, the farmer remained serene and simply replied, "Maybe." The neighbors were puzzled. How can he be so indifferent to such bad luck? They wondered, shaking their heads before returning home, convinced the farmer was in denial. Days later, to everyone's surprise, the horse returned, but not alone. It came back with a herd of wild horses from the mountains. Now the farmer had several horses. His neighbors came rushing back, excited. "What great fortune!" they exclaimed. The farmer smiled quietly and said again, "Maybe." The neighbors were confused. Surely this was good luck. Yet the farmer's calm reaction was the same as before. They wondered why he didn't seem more thrilled. Days later, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses, but was thrown off and broke his leg. The injury was serious, leaving the son unable to work on the farm for a long time. Hearing this, the neighbors returned with sympathy. "What bad luck! Your son's broken leg means he can't help you now," they said. The farmer again responded calmly, "Maybe." The neighbors grew more baffled. No matter what happened, good or bad, the farmer's answer was always the same. They couldn't understand his calmness. Weeks later, war broke out and soldiers came to draft all the young men. Many villagers' sons were taken, but because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was exempt and stayed home. The neighbors came again, saying, "How fortunate you are. Because of your son's injury, he was spared from war." The farmer replied once more, "Maybe." The Buddha said, "Nothing lasts forever. Everything changes. Being is always becoming." This is the foundation of the farmer's wisdom. His repeated "maybe" reveals deep insight. Life is always changing, and what seems good or bad at one moment may turn out differently later. Why rush to label events as positive or negative? Zen Buddhism points out our mind's habit of dividing experiences into good or bad, lucky or unlucky. This dualistic thinking causes emotional highs and lows. We rejoice when things go well and despair when they don't. But as the farmer's story shows, we never see the full picture. Today's misfortune might prevent future disaster. Today's blessing might lead to future challenges. Zen's idea of non-judgment doesn't mean indifference. The farmer cared deeply for his horse, son, and farm, but he held a balanced mindset, the Buddha's equanimity, which stayed steady amid life's ups and downs. Zen master Sang Tan wrote, "The great way is easy for those without preferences." When we stop forcing life to fit our desires, we open ourselves to a deeper freedom and wisdom beyond our limited views. The Buddha said, "Do not overvalue what you have or envy others. Those who envy never find peace." We often compare ourselves to others, judging our lives as better or worse. The farmer's neighbors did this constantly, while the farmer himself remained free from such views. Today, many of us face situations to practice this maybe mindset. A mispromotion leading to a better opportunity, a painful breakup opening room for self-growth, illness prompting us to rethink priorities, or financial troubles teaching resilience. The 13th century poet Rumi expressed this wisdom. What seems a curse may be a blessing, and what seems a blessing may be a curse. The farmer lived this not just as an idea, but as reality. His maybe wasn't passive acceptance, but active wisdom, recognizing that life's story is still unfolding. The Buddha said, "In the sky, there is no east or west. These distinctions exist only in our minds." Similarly, good and bad luck are mental labels we create. Reality is a flow of causes and conditions, neither truly positive nor negative. As you reflect on recent events you labeled as lucky or unlucky, try holding them with the farmer's gentle maybe. Notice how this eases anxiety about bad things and tempers attachment to good things. Can you find freedom by suspending judgment about how life should be? The Buddha taught, "Our thoughts create the world." The farmer's maybe reminds us we always choose how to interpret our experiences, and this choice deeply affects our peace of mind. Our next story highlights non-reactivity and emotional control. This is the Buddha and the Angry Man. Once, while teaching in a quiet forest, the Buddha was approached by a man filled with anger and jealousy, upset by the Buddha's influence. The man insulted the Buddha loudly, calling him a fraud and accusing him of deceiving people. The Buddha stayed calm and silent, showing no sign of anger or offense. After tiring himself out, the man asked why the Buddha didn't respond or defend himself. The Buddha replied gently, "Tell me, if someone offers you a gift and you refuse it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man thought and answered, "It still belongs to the giver." The Buddha nodded. "Similarly, if you offer me your anger and I do not accept it, who owns that anger?" The man realized his anger had no power over the Buddha. It remained his own burden. The Buddha said, "If I don't accept your anger and insults, they fall back on you. You suffer, not me. I choose peace." The man, reflecting on this, bowed his head and admitted, "Master, I see now that my anger only harms me. How can I learn to find peace like you?" The Buddha smiled kindly. "Anger is like holding a hot coal to throw at someone else, but you burn yourself instead. Let go of anger. Practice mindfulness, compassion, and understanding, and peace will come." The Buddha said, "You don't suffer because of your anger. Rather, anger itself causes your suffering." This deep teaching sheds light on why reactive feelings bring us so much pain. Carrying anger, bitterness, or hatred harms ourselves far more than the targets of those emotions. Each moment spent in anger is a moment lost from experiencing peace. Every thought about revenge redirects energy that could be used for healing. Why do we hold on to anger so tightly? Zen Buddhism points to several reasons that make anger hard to release. The first is our conviction of being right. We believe our anger is justified and therefore worth keeping. We mistake releasing anger as approving the wrong that caused it. Yet, the Buddha's teaching disputes this belief. We can set firm limits and seek fairness without poisoning ourselves with reactive feelings. The second reason is our strong identification with emotions. We say, I am angry, instead of I feel anger, making the emotion part of our identity. When someone advises us to let go of anger, it can feel like giving up a part of ourselves. Zen practice helps us create distance between our awareness and emotions, letting us observe feelings without being overwhelmed. The third factor is cultural conditioning about anger. Many learn that anger signifies power, drives action, and demands respect. We fear losing anger will make us passive or vulnerable. The Buddha's reaction to an angry man shows real strength, not aggressive force, but steady, unshakable calm. The Buddha said, hatred never ends by hatred. It is only overcome by love. This is an ancient universal truth. This teaching invites us to question the idea that anger is a useful reaction to mistreatment. Does fighting hostility with hostility ever truly solve conflicts? Or does it just keep reactivity going? The metaphor of the gift offers insight. It suggests emotions like anger, criticism, or judgment only affect us if we accept them. When negativity is directed at us, we can either accept and absorb it, disturbing our peace, or refuse it and keep our calm. This doesn't mean ignoring injustice or becoming numb. The Buddha did not ignore the angry man. He stayed present, engaged, and responsive. But his response came from compassion, not reaction, from wisdom, not ego defense. This is the heart of non-reactivity in Zen. Not withdrawal, but engagement with a different awareness. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a method called embracing anger with mindfulness, which means noticing anger as it arises, breathing through it, and treating it with care like a crying baby. Instead of suppressing or mindlessly expressing anger, we acknowledge it kindly, understanding its causes and impermanence. Tonight, as you reflect on moments that sparked anger or resentment, try the Buddha's gift metaphor. Can you realize you have a choice whether to accept others' negativity? Can you sense the freedom in refusing it? Remember the Buddha's words. Holding on to anger is like clutching a hot coal to throw at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Letting go frees you and opens space for true resolution and understanding. Now, let's explore a story about impermanence and non-attachment. This is the story of the monk and the teacup. In a quiet mountain Zen monastery, a respected monk lived a mindful, contemplative life. His students admired his wisdom, calmness, and ability to fully embrace the present without being shaken by chaos. Each day, he meditated, drank tea, and shared teachings. One afternoon, during tea, the monk held up a simple clay cup, gazing at it silently. The cup was beautiful in its simplicity, with a soft, earthy tone and perfect shape. Curious, the students waited for his words. After a moment, the monk smiled and said, "This teacup is already broken." The students exchanged puzzled looks. The cup appeared whole and intact. A younger student finally spoke. "Master, the teacup isn't broken. It looks fine. Why do you say it's already broken?" The monk gently set the cup on the table. "In my mind," he said softly, "this teacup is already broken. Though it seems whole now, someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe years later, it will break. That's unavoidable. When I see it as already broken, I can fully appreciate it without clinging. I can enjoy my tea, knowing its life is temporary." The students fell silent, reflecting on the weight of his words. They understood he wasn't just speaking about the cup, but offering a deeper lesson about life. The monk added, "Everything in life is like this teacup. All things, no matter how beautiful or precious, are impermanent. We cannot keep them forever." Understanding this frees us to enjoy life without fearing loss. We can appreciate each moment, relationship, and experience, knowing they too will pass. When they do, we won't suffer because we've accepted impermanence. An older student asked thoughtfully, "Master, does this mean we shouldn't love or care because things will end?" The monk shook his head gently. No, it means the opposite. Accepting impermanence lets us love more deeply because we don't hold on from fear of losing. We love and value things for what they are now, understanding they're part of life's natural flow. This brings peace, free from the burden of clinging to what changes. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. Seeing this with insight leads to disillusionment with suffering. This truth is central to the teacup story and to Zen practice, embracing impermanence as a lived experience, not just an idea. Why do we resist impermanence so strongly? Zen Buddhism says it's because we fundamentally misunderstand reality. We see things as solid, separate, and lasting, when they are actually fluid, interconnected, and fleeting. This leads to attachment clinging to what cannot be held. Think about your daily life. We cling to possessions fearing loss or damage, to relationships fearing change, to youth, health, and abilities resisting aging. We even cling to ideas, opinions, and identities as if permanent instead of fluid. The monk's claim that the teacup is already broken shows a new way to relate to impermanence. Instead of denying or resisting change, he preemptively accepts the inevitable end of all things. This frees him from anxiety about what cannot be prevented. This isn't pessimism, but clear realism that deepens appreciation of the present moment. The Buddha said, "The world is marked by death and decay, but the wise do not grieve, having understood its nature." This teaching isn't about being cold or detached from care, but about caring differently, without the impossible expectation that things will last forever. The monk loves his teacup, not less because it will break, but more, precisely because it is fleeting and precious. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki beautifully explained this paradox. Understanding impermanence and finding composure in it leads to nana. This composure isn't resignation, but full embrace of reality. It allows deep life engagement, freed from constant struggle against change. Practically, how can we cultivate this already broken view? Start by noticing your attachments, people, things, situations you fear losing most. Instead of suppressing this fear, gently acknowledge the temporary nature of these precious parts of your life. Practice saying, "This too will pass," not as a gloomy thought, but as an invitation to cherish now. The Buddha taught, "Neither fire nor wind, birth nor death can erase our good deeds." This adds to the already broken wisdom. While material things and bodies are impermanent, our actions and mindful presence have lasting impact. By cultivating wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness, qualities beyond impermanence, we find a different kind of security. Tonight, as you rest, think about what teacups you cling to anxiously, fearing their break. Can you try the monk's view, accepting their impermanence not as threat, but as something that deepens their value? As the Buddha said, "The trouble is you think you have time." Recognizing impermanence doesn't lessen life's beauty, but intensifies it, inviting full appreciation before inevitable change. Now, let's explore a story about true generosity and compassion: the Buddha and the robe. In ancient India, during the era when the Buddha journeyed through towns and villages to share his insights, he often drew large crowds. Many were deeply touched by his wisdom and chose to leave their homes to follow him as monks and students. On one occasion, while staying in a quiet village, a wealthy merchant heard of the Buddha's arrival and chose to seek him out. The merchant found himself profoundly moved by the Buddha's words and wished to show his appreciation through a gift. He brought with him an elegant robe crafted from the finest silk, decorated with exquisite designs. With great respect, the merchant bowed and offered the robe, saying, "Lord Buddha, Please accept this robe as a symbol of my gratitude for your teachings." The Buddha gazed at the robe and then at the merchant with a serene smile. He could sense the merchant's heartfelt intention and generosity. Yet, as someone who embraced a life of simplicity, the Buddha had no interest in lavish possessions. His lifestyle was modest, and he encouraged his followers to live with minimal needs. "I appreciate your kindness," the Buddha said gently, "but I must decline this robe. It is far too luxurious for a humble monk such as myself. The one I wear is enough for me." The merchant was taken aback by the Buddha's response. "But Lord Buddha," he said, "I offer this out of deep respect. You are worthy of the very best I can offer." Still smiling, the Buddha replied, "If you truly wish to honor me, there is another way to make use of this gift. Give it to someone in real need, someone who doesn't even have basic clothing. That will bring greater goodness and happiness." The merchant, touched by the Buddha's compassion, slowly nodded in understanding. He realized that genuine giving meant helping those who were truly lacking, not offering gifts to those who had enough. "Thank you, Lord Buddha. I will follow your advice," said the merchant. He later found a destitute man in the village, shivering in the cold, dressed in little more than tattered rags. The merchant gave the silk robe to the poor man, who received it with joy and heartfelt thanks. The following day, the merchant returned to the Buddha to share what he had done. The Buddha nodded with approval and said, "You've done a good thing, my friend." True generosity lies not in giving to those who have plenty, but in easing the suffering of those in need. By sharing your abundance with those who are struggling, you've brought real kindness and happiness into the world. The merchant bowed low, feeling a warm contentment within him unlike anything he'd experienced before. He saw that the Buddha's wisdom went far beyond the surface of gift-giving. It touched on the deeper meaning of compassion and the joy that arises when we help others. The Buddha said, "There is happiness in every step of giving, in the intention, in the act itself, and in the reflection afterward." This insight shows that generosity is not just about giving things, but about the inner growth and transformation that comes from a generous heart. Why did the Buddha turn down the luxurious robe? Zen tradition reveals several layers of meaning. First, he embodied the teaching of contentment, the ability to know what is enough. He understood that unchecked desire is never truly satisfied. By accepting only what he needed, the Buddha showed freedom from the endless pursuit of more. Second, the Buddha recognized that real generosity isn't about appearances or social recognition, but about meeting real needs. By suggesting the robe be given to someone truly cold and poor, he showed that kindness should be guided by wisdom, not by social norms. Third, he understood the merchant's true intention. Though the merchant wanted to earn merit and show respect, the Buddha offered a deeper path, relieving another's suffering directly, instead of adding excess to someone who already had enough. In today's consumer culture, we often think giving means spending, offering costly presents to people who already have much. This speaks to the deeply transformative nature of generosity, not just for those who receive, but for the giver as well. Each sincere act of giving dissolves self-centeredness and deepens our connection with others. It reminds us that our happiness is interwoven with the happiness of all beings. In Zen, we cultivate dana pramita, the perfection of generosity. The Buddha didn't ask the merchant to keep the robe or sell it for gain. Instead, he guided him to find someone who truly lacked clothing. This discernment requires deep awareness of the actual needs in a situation, instead of following routine patterns of giving that might miss the mark. As the Buddha said, the greatest gift is the act of giving itself. This points to the interchange that occurs when we give from compassion, rather than from duty, societal pressure, or ego. In such moments, we experience mudita, joy in the joy of others. Tonight, as you think about your own acts of generosity, ask yourself, do they reflect the kind of mindful giving the Buddha encouraged in this story? Are there ways you could channel your resources, whether physical, emotional, or mental, toward those who truly lack what they need? Can you feel the contrast between giving driven by social pressure and that which springs from genuine compassion? Remember what the Buddha taught. If people truly understood the impact of generosity, they wouldn't eat without first sharing, nor would selfishness cloud their minds and take root. Now, let's turn to a lesser-known Zen parable that offers deep insight into managing our thoughts. The story of the two monks and the river. An older monk and his young apprentice were making their way through the countryside on a long pilgrimage. Their route took them through woodlands, up hills, and down into valleys. For most of their journey, they walked in quiet mindfulness, attentive to each footstep and breath. As they neared a riverbank, they encountered a young woman in elegant attire who appeared distressed. The river had swelled from recent rains, and she hesitated to cross, fearing that the water would damage her garments or endanger her safety. When she saw the monks, she called out, "Kind sirs, could one of you help me cross? I need to get to the other side, but am frightened by the current." The elder monk stepped forward without a word, gently picked her up, carried her through the river, and set her down gently on the far shore. She bowed gratefully and went on her way. The monks resumed their walk in silence. As they continued, the younger monk looked increasingly disturbed, stealing glances at his teacher, his expression filled with unease. After several hours had passed, he finally couldn't hold back his thoughts. "Master," he exclaimed, "as monks we're not supposed to have physical contact with women. How could you carry that woman across the river?" The elder monk turned to him with a calm smile and said, "I put her down at the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still holding on to her?" The younger monk was stunned into silence. In that moment, he understood that while the elder had carried the woman only briefly, out of compassion and necessity, he had been mentally fixated on the event, weighing himself down with judgment and restlessness. The Buddha once said, "What we think, we become." This truth shows how the weight of thoughts can be far heavier than any physical burden. While the elder monk acted with compassion and then let go, returning to the here and now, the younger monk remained entangled in a memory, replaying it repeatedly in his head. Why do we, like him, hold on to mental burdens far longer than needed? Zen Buddhism identifies a few key reasons. One is our clinging to rules and abstract ideas over their deeper meaning. The younger monk was so focused on the surface of the monastic rule that he missed its essence, a life guided by compassion and integrity. His rigid mindset blinded him to the elder monk's kind-hearted intention. Another is our habit of judgment and mental overthinking. One small thought can spark a chain of assumptions, opinions, and inner debates that pull us out of the present. The younger monk's passing thought turned into hours of inner turmoil, all of it unnecessary and self-inflicted. Thirdly, we often struggle to tell the difference between healthy reflection and harmful overthinking. While examining the past can help us grow, getting stuck in obsessive thoughts only robs us of peace. The elder monk showed us how to respond with clarity and care, and then fully let go. In everyday life, we all carry these invisible mental loads. That argument from days ago, we keep replaying. The mistake at work we can't stop regretting. The imagined future problems that haven't even happened. Each one is like carrying someone across a river and refusing to set them down. The Buddha said, "Release the past, release the future, release the present. Step onto the farther shore of existence with a mind that clings to nothing. Don't reside in birth and death." This teaching points to the profound freedom that arises when we let go of fixations and simply return to now. Zen gives us practical tools to set down the burdens we carry in the mind. Through mindfulness meditation, we learn to recognize when we're holding on to thoughts we don't need and gently release them. The technique of labeling thoughts as thinking reminds us that thoughts are not facts. Grounding ourselves in bodily sensations, the touch of our feet on the earth, the rhythm of breath, brings us back when the mind starts drifting to past or future. The elder monk reflects the Zen principle of mushin, or no mind. Not an empty head, but a mind free of attachment. He was able to think and act wisely, then return to a peaceful state of clarity. This quality is not reserved for monks. It is something we can all cultivate by learning to release what no longer needs to be held. Tonight, as thoughts of the past or the future arise, ask yourself, are you still carrying someone or something in your mind unnecessarily? Can you experience the lightness of setting it down? Remember the Buddha's words, nothing is worth clinging to. Real peace is found in letting go. Now, let's explore a tale that highlights the mental walls we often build ourselves. This is the story of the empty cup. A well-regarded university professor once visited a Zen master to gain insight into Zen teachings. Though he had spent years studying religions and writing books on philosophy, he was curious about what Zen might offer. The master nodded and smiled. "Let us have some tea first," he said. The professor agreed, assuming their conversation would follow shortly. The Zen master prepared the tea slowly, mindfully. Once ready, he placed the teacup before the professor and began pouring. The cup filled quickly, but the master didn't stop. The tea spilled over the rim, onto the table, and even onto the professor's robes. "Stop," the professor exclaimed. "The cup is full. No more can go in?" The Zen master looked at him calmly. "Exactly," he said. "You are like this cup, full of ideas, assumptions, and knowledge. How can I teach you Zen unless you first empty your cup? How can I teach you about Zen if your mind is already full?" The professor fell silent, struck by the realization. In that instant, he understood that his vast knowledge was not aiding his growth, it was hindering it. His mind was too cluttered to accept fresh insights. Humbled by this truth, he bowed respectfully to the master, finally prepared to embark on the true path of learning. The Buddha once said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." This reminds us to stay open and receptive, what Zen calls shoshin, or beginner's mind. When we meet life with that openness, we remain ready for discovery. But when we convince ourselves that we already know, we close the door on growth. Why are we so quick to overfill our mental cups? Zen points to a few common tendencies. One is the ego's craving for certainty and control. Believing we understand how things work creates a false sense of safety in an uncertain world. Our thoughts and beliefs become mental walls that protect us from the discomfort of not knowing. Another is our deep identification with what we know. Our memories, ideas, and experiences form the story of who we think we are. Letting go of them can feel like losing our identity. If I don't hold on to what I know, we wonder, then who am I? A third tendency is our comparing mind, constantly measuring ourselves against others. In competitive environments like academia, being more knowledgeable can feel like a badge of honor. The professor had built his self-worth on being informed, which made it harder for him to embrace not knowing. The problem isn't just that a full mind limits learning, it also distorts how we see the world. We stop perceiving what's actually there and instead project what we think should be there. In doing so, we miss the subtle beauty and nuance of reality. The Buddha taught, with our thoughts, we make the world. When those thoughts are fixed and inflexible, our world shrinks. But when we empty our minds, we rediscover the mystery and magic of existence. Life becomes rich again. So tonight, try approaching rest with an empty cup. Let go of your usual ideas about sleep, stories, even what you think you know about yourself. Can you listen as though these words are entirely new? Can you feel what it's like to stop analyzing, judging, or expecting? The Buddha said, if you empty your boat of water, it will glide swiftly. In the same way, when we release preconceptions, we move through life with more grace, lightness, and music, joy. Now let's hear a tale about discovering insight in unexpected places. This is the story of the Zen master and the dirty road. A Zen master was traveling with his disciples through the countryside. It was the rainy season, and the path had become muddy and difficult. As they carefully made their way, they spotted a grand temple atop a nearby hill. Curious, they climbed up for a visit. The temple was stunning, filled with ornate carvings, shining statues, and serene gardens. Inside, the priests wore pristine robes and performed complex rituals with grace and harmony. The disciples were impressed. After some time observing, one asked the master, "What do you think of this temple and its ceremonies? Is this the way to enlightenment?" The master didn't answer. Instead, he led them back down to the muddy road. He stopped at a filthy patch, knelt, and drew a circle in the wet earth with his finger. "Truth exists here too," he said. The students were puzzled, but slowly, the message dawned on them. The master was showing that awakening isn't confined to polished rituals or majestic buildings. The mud, messy, ordinary, overlooked, contains the same truth as the golden statues. Real wisdom is available in every moment, if we know how to see it. The Buddha once said, "If you cannot find the truth where you are now, where else do you expect to find it?" This lesson sits at the heart of the Master's muddy circle. We often seek enlightenment in distant places, traumatic experiences, or perfect conditions. Anywhere but here. We often assume that spiritual growth means rising above these muddy realities, yet these very realities hold the wisdom we seek. In Japanese aesthetics, there's a concept called wabi-sabi, appreciating beauty in imperfection, transience, and incompleteness. The mud circle represents this viewpoint, inviting us to find depth in what seems ordinary or flawed. We tend to look outward for what can only be discovered within. The temples we build, the rituals we perform, and the texts we study are merely fingers pointing at the moon, not the moon itself. So how can we apply the wisdom of the mud circle in practice? We begin by bringing curious attention to ordinary moments that usually go unnoticed. Washing dishes, waiting in line, feeling tired, facing conflicts. Instead of seeing these as barriers to spiritual practice, we can recognize them as the very foundation of it. The Buddha said, "My teaching is not philosophy. It is the result of direct experience." This emphasizes that true wisdom arises not from intellectual knowledge, but from immediate engagement with life itself. The mud on the path provided a direct first-hand experience that simply watching temple ceremonies as an outsider could never offer. Tonight, as you settle down to rest, reflect on the mud circles in your own life. Those ordinary, difficult, or uncomfortable moments you might usually avoid or want to change. Could you bring the same mindful attention to these experiences as you would to a stunning sunset or a deep spiritual lesson? Can you feel the hidden wisdom waiting to be uncovered in these unexpected places? As the Buddha taught, all experience is preceded, guided, and created by the mind. When we face even the murkiest moments with openness and curiosity, we transform obstacles into gateways to profound understanding. Now, let us turn to a tale illustrating the wisdom behind true mastery. This is the story of the Master Archer. Long ago in ancient China, there lived a renowned archer whose skill was unmatched throughout the land. His arrows never missed their targets, and his fame spread far and wide. The emperor himself recognized his talent, bestowing honors and wealth upon him. One day, a young archer, inspired by tales of the master's legendary skill, approached him with a desire to learn his secrets. "Master," the young man said, bowing respectfully, "I have practiced archery for many years and have attained some proficiency, but I yearn to reach the highest mastery like you. Please teach me the technique that ensures your arrows never miss." The master archer regarded the young man thoughtfully and replied, "Meet me at dawn tomorrow on the mountain. Bring your bow and arrows." The following morning, the eager student arrived at the designated place where the master awaited him. Instead of a training ground with targets, they stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking a deep gorge below. The master guided the young archer to the very brink where the earth dropped steeply hundreds of feet down into the valley. The young archer hesitantly stepped toward the edge. Looking down into the dizzying abyss, his heart pounded and his legs trembled. His hands shook as he tried to nock an arrow. After several failed attempts, he stepped back. "I cannot shoot from here, master," he confessed. "The height makes me dizzy, and fear causes my hands to falter. How can I hit the target when I'm afraid of falling?" The master nodded kindly. "This is the very secret you seek. The difference between us is not technique or strength. When I shoot, there is only the arrow, the bow, and the target. No fear, no thoughts of success or failure, no awareness of being observed or praised. There is not even a separate self shooting the arrow. There is simply the perfect unity of archer and target." He continued, "You miss your mark not because your skill is inadequate, but because you are divided. One part of you shoots the arrow, while another part fears falling, hopes for success, worries about failure, and remains self-conscious. When you can shoot with your entire being, undistracted by fear or desire, you will attain the mastery you seek." This teaching beautifully encapsulates the essence of the master archer's wisdom. Genuine mastery in any domain arises not merely from technique, but from total presence and the dissolution of the divided self within us. Why is it so hard to achieve this state of undivided attention? Zen Buddhism points out several reasons that fragment our awareness. First, our habitual self-consciousness, the part of the mind that distances itself from experience, constantly judging, comparing, and seeking approval. This observing ego creates an artificial separation between us and our actions. Second, our attachment to outcomes, our fixation on success or failure, praise or criticism, rewards or punishments. When we release an arrow, literally or figuratively, while obsessing over whether it will hit the target, we introduce tension and hesitation that disrupt natural flow. Third is our fear, the survival instinct which, though vital in real danger, often activates unnecessarily during everyday challenges. The young archer's fear of falling symbolizes all the ways we hold back from full engagement due to perceived threats to our safety, status, or self-image. In Japanese Zen, this state of full absorption is called mushin no mind, or samadhi, condition where the boundary between subject and object disappears and action flows effortlessly, free from self-conscious thought. Athletes call it being in the zone. Artists experience it as being carried by their work. Musicians feel it as merging with the music. The Buddha said, "Just as a solid rock is unshaken by the storm, so the wise remain unmoved by praise or blame." This steadiness arises not from rigidity, but from complete immersion in the present moment, undistracted by concerns about how others perceive us or whether we meet external standards. Zen practice cultivates this ability through formal meditation and mindful engagement in daily activities. In Zazen seated meditation, we practice letting go of thoughts and repeatedly returning to simple presence. In activities like archery, calligraphy, tea ceremony, or martial arts, we train to bring this same undivided attention to our actions. In your own life, you have likely encountered moments of this complete absorption, whether while playing sports, creating art, solving a problem, or even performing ordinary tasks like washing dishes or walking in nature. In these moments, the separate self fades away, and we experience the joy of total presence. The Master Archer's teaching applies universally. Whether you're having a conversation, working on a project, caring for someone, or cooking, can you bring your full self to the moment? Can you notice when you are divided part present while another part worries, plans, or judges? As the Buddha taught, there is no path to happiness beyond wholehearted presence. Happiness is the way. The satisfaction we seek is not in achieving results, but in the quality of presence we bring to each moment. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, can you approach rest with your full, undivided attention? Rather than trying to force sleep or worrying about getting enough rest, can you simply be with the experience of lying down, feeling the weight of your body on the bed, and following the natural rhythm of your breath? Remember the Buddha's words, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The tranquility you seek is available in the complete acceptance of this moment just as it is. Let us now explore a story about finding solutions by approaching problems differently. This is the story of the Zen master and the heavy stone dot in a small village nestled among mountains. The main road was partially blocked by an enormous stone that had fallen from the cliffs above. The stone was so large and heavy that none of the villagers could move it despite their best efforts. Several strong men had tried pushing it together, but it wouldn't budge. Others had attempted to break it into smaller pieces, but the stone was unusually hard, and their tools merely scratched its surface. Some had tried digging around it to roll it away, but the ground was too firm and the stone too deeply embedded. After many failed attempts, the villagers decided to seek help from a Zen master who lived in a monastery nearby. The master was known for his wisdom and creative solutions to difficult problems. When the villagers explained their predicament, the Zen master agreed to come see the stone. A crowd gathered as the elderly master slowly made his way to the obstacle. Everyone expected him to offer some profound technique or organize a better method for moving the heavy boulder. Upon reaching the stone, the master circled it slowly, examining it from all angles with great attention. The villagers waited anxiously for his solution. Finally, the master stopped, looked at the gathered crowd, and asked, "Why must the stone be moved?" The villagers were confused by the question. "Because it blocks the road," one replied. "It makes travel difficult and slows our carts and wagons." The master nodded thoughtfully and said, "The stone blocks one path, but perhaps it creates another." He then guided the villagers in clearing and forming a new path around the stone. With many hands working together, they soon created a smooth alternate route that curved gently around the boulder. Not only did this new path solve their problem, but the massive stone became a landmark, a natural monument that gave their village a unique identity. Children played on it, elders rested in its shade, and over time, the villagers came to appreciate the very obstacle they had once resented. Before leaving, the Zen master said to them, "Some obstacles cannot be removed. The wisdom lies in finding a way to live with them or around them. What appears to block your path might actually be showing you a new direction." The Buddha taught, "As the fletcher whittles and makes straight his arrows, so the master directs his straying thoughts." This teaching points to the importance of directing our minds skillfully, not forcing them into predetermined paths, but gently guiding them toward creative solutions. The villagers had been so fixated on removing the stone that they couldn't see any alternative approach. Why do we so often get stuck in one way of viewing problems? Zen Buddhism identifies several mental patterns that limit our perspective. First is our attachment to expectations, our fixed ideas about how things should be. The villagers were convinced that the proper solution could only involve moving or breaking the stone because that would restore the road to its original state. Second is what Buddhists call fixed mind or rigid thinking, the inability to adapt our approach when faced with resistance. When our initial efforts don't succeed, we often just try harder using the same method rather than stepping back to reconsider our entire approach. Third is our failure to question our assumptions. The villagers assumed the problem was the stone itself rather than their relationship to it. By reframing the situation, the stone isn't the problem. Our need for a path is. The Zen master opened up new possibilities that were invisible from within the original framework. Zen practice cultivates mental flexibility through Kohn's paradoxical stories or questions that cannot be solved through conventional thinking. Famous koans include, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Or, what was your original face before your parents were born? These deliberately short-circuit logical analysis, forcing the mind to operate in new ways. This training develops what Zen calls lateral thinking, the ability to approach problems from unexpected angles. The Buddha said, "We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think." When our thoughts remain trapped in familiar patterns, our solutions will be equally limited. By cultivating mental flexibility, we open ourselves to innovative approaches that may be hidden in plain sight. In your own life, consider a challenge you've been struggling with, perhaps a relationship difficulty, a work problem, or a personal obstacle. Have you been pushing against your heavy stone? Attempting the same solution repeatedly with minimal success? What might happen if, like the Zen master, you step back and question your fundamental assumptions about the problem? The Japanese concept of ma, the space between things, offers additional insight. Sometimes the solution lies not in the elements themselves, but in the relationship between them. The villagers found their answer not in the stone or the road as separate entities, but in reconsidering how they could relate to each other. Tonight, as you reflect on challenges in your life, experiment with the Zen master's approach. Ask yourself, what if this obstacle isn't something to be removed, but something to be integrated? What new path might it be revealing? Remember the Buddha's teaching. No matter how hard the past, you can always begin again. Each moment offers a fresh opportunity to see with new eyes and discover solutions hidden beyond our usual perspective. Let us turn to a story about the power of letting go and the freedom it brings. This is the story of the two traveling monks. Two Buddhist monks, Tenzin and Aikido, were once traveling together down a muddy road in the countryside during the rainy season. Heavy rains had fallen, leaving the road flooded in many places and making their journey difficult. As they rounded a bend, they came upon a lovely young woman in a silk kimono and sash, unable to cross a large muddy puddle that blocked the path. She stood hesitating at the edge, clearly distressed about how to proceed without ruining her beautiful clothes. Without a word, Tenzin went to the woman, picked her up in his arms, carried her across the muddy water, and set her down safely on the other side. The woman thanked him with a bow and continued on her way. The two monks walked on in silence for several hours. Finally, unable to contain himself any longer, Aikido spoke out. "Brother Tenzin," he said, "we monks are not supposed to go near females, especially young and lovely ones. It is dangerous. Why did you do that?" Tenzin replied calmly, "I left the girl there by the river." "Are you still carrying her?" Aikido was stunned into silence, suddenly aware of the burden he had been carrying for hours. Not a physical woman, but the weight of judgment, concern, and mental agitation. While Tenzin had responded to a momentary need with compassion and then returned fully to the present journey, Aikido had been dwelling on the incident long after it was over. The Buddha taught, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, and cross over to the farther shore of existence. This teaching perfectly captures Tenzin's wisdom. He understood that true freedom comes not from rigid adherence to external rules, but from maintaining internal freedom. The ability to respond appropriately to each situation and then move on without lingering attachment. Why do we like Aikido so often carry unnecessary mental burdens? Zen Buddhism identifies several factors that keep us clinging to what we should release. First is our tendency toward rumination, repeatedly thinking about past events we cannot change. This mental habit consumes energy that could be directed toward the present moment and often reinforces negative emotions like anger, guilt, or anxiety. Second is our attachment to rules over principles. Aikido was so focused on the letter of the monastic rule avoiding contact with women, that he missed its spirit cultivating purity of mind and intention. Akito's initial observation led to hours of internal commentary about propriety, risk, and his companion's behavior, all unnecessary and self-created suffering. Zen practice trains us to recognize when we're carrying something that could be put down. Through meditation, we develop the capacity to observe our thoughts without being carried away by them. We learn to distinguish between helpful reflection and unhelpful rumination. And we cultivate the ability to return again and again to the simplicity and freedom of the present moment. The Buddha said, "In the end, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you." This teaching invites us to consider what we might be carrying that no longer serves us: resentments from past injuries, anxiety about future uncertainties, or judgments about ourselves and others. In Japanese Zen, there is a concept called session, which literally means touching the mind-heart. During intensive meditation retreats, practitioners have the opportunity to notice what they've been unnecessarily carrying and experience the lightness that comes from setting these burdens down. This letting go isn't about forgetting or denying our experiences, but about preventing them from becoming obstacles to living fully in the present. Similarly, our peace of mind never decreases by letting go of what no longer needs to be carried. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, experiment with setting down whatever mental burdens you've been carrying throughout the day. Imagine placing each concern, each unresolved situation, each judgment or worry gently on the ground beside you. They will still be there in the morning if you need to pick them up again. But for now, feel the lightness and spaciousness that comes from traveling unburdened, even if just for the night. Remember Tenzin's wisdom. True freedom lies not in avoiding life's muddy waters, but in crossing them when necessary, and then continuing on your way with an uncluttered heart. Let us delve into a tale about the strength found in inner stillness. This is the story of the cricket within the temple. In a busy Japanese metropolis, a grand temple had stood for generations, its golden rooftop gleaming under the sunlight. Though modern life's hustle surrounded it, cars, construction, and waves of tourists, an unmistakable sense of deep calm lingered inside. One afternoon, a young musician arrived at the temple. As someone who had practiced both music and meditation, he found himself intrigued by the unique quality of quiet that seemed to saturate the sacred hall. Sitting silently in a corner, he closed his eyes and concentrated on listening, hoping to grasp what made this silence so distinct. To his astonishment, beneath the sporadic footsteps of guests and the faint murmur of the city, he noticed a gentle, rhythmic sound, barely audible. Following his curiosity, he tracked the sound to its origin and found a small cricket nestled within a crack in one of the old wooden columns. The musician was in awe. How could such a tiny being be heard in such a vast hall? He went over to an old monk who was sweeping the floor and asked, "Respected elder, did you know there's a cricket living inside that pillar?" The monk gave a gentle smile. "Ah, you've heard our little companion. He's been part of this temple for many years. But how can such a tiny sound be noticed in such a large temple, with all the surrounding noise from the city?" The young musician asked. Setting his broom aside, the monk signaled the young man to come with him. He brought the musician to the temple's entrance and reached into his robe, pulling out a coin. "Watch this," he said. Then he let the coin drop onto the stone floor. The moment it hit the ground, nearly everyone in the crowded temple turned their heads toward the sound. The monk looked at the puzzled musician and softly said, "People tend to hear what they're tuned in to notice. The sound of the coin isn't louder than the cricket, yet everyone reacts to it, because money speaks a language we're all taught to respond to. The cricket sings all the time, yet few recognize it, simply because they're not listening for such things." He went on, "Those who learn to silence their inner noise can perceive what others overlook. It's not just crickets. they begin to hear the subtle wisdom that quietly flows beneath the surface of our noisy lives. Real silence isn't merely about a lack of sound, but about a sharpened sense of attention. The young musician bowed deeply, realizing he had received a lesson far more valuable than any music technique. He had learned the contrast between simply hearing and truly listening, between outward quiet and deep inner stillness. The Buddha once said, "The one who has patience is the greatest warrior." This insight directly connects to our ability to cultivate inner stillness. The hardest struggles often aren't against outside threats, but against the noisy storm within ourselves. Endless thoughts, judgments, cravings, and worries that drown out the quiet guidance always available in each moment. Why is it so hard for us to hear the crickets in our own lives? Zen teachings highlight a few reasons behind our inner noise. First, we're conditioned to prioritize certain types of input. Just like how everyone noticed the coin drop but ignored the cricket song, we're taught to respond to drama, loud voices, and urgency, often missing the softer signals that carry deeper truths. Second, Zen refers to the monkey mind, that restless, jumping mental state that constantly shifts from one thought to the next, rarely pausing long enough to see what lies beneath the surface. This inner noise creates a barrier between us and the present moment, filtering our experience through layers of judgment and thought. Zen practice encourages a form of silence that's awake and attentive. It's not about emptying the mind, but about becoming present enough to perceive beyond our usual mental patterns. Through meditation, we learn to recognize when we're lost in internal chatter and gently bring ourselves back to the now. It's not suppression. It's learning to listen to what lives beneath and between our thoughts. The Buddha also taught, everything we are arises from our thoughts. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. When our minds are filled with noise, we become scattered, distracted, and disconnected from the deeper clarity that silence offers. In Japanese aesthetics, there's the concept of ma and meaningful pause or empty space that defines the whole. In music, it's the stillness between the notes that gives rhythm its shape. In conversation, it's the thoughtful pause that brings depth to understanding. And in life, it's the quiet, receptive moments that often hold the greatest insights. The cricket in the temple symbolizes those subtle, wise voices that are always speaking beneath our awareness. They are the intuitions we overlook, the natural flows we ignore, the gentle warnings we brush aside, and the soft beauty we fail to see. When we develop inner stillness, those voices begin to surface, guiding us in ways the noisy mind never could. Tonight, as you sit quietly, can you listen beyond your thoughts for the crickets within your awareness? Maybe you'll hear your breath's rhythm, feel sensations in your body you usually miss, or sense a quiet knowing about something in your life. The quieter you grow, the more you are able to truly listen. By fostering this inner calm, we realize that the wisdom we have been searching for has been communicating with us all along. We just haven't been silent enough to catch it. As we proceed on our path through Zen Buddhism's teachings, let's delve into a story that highlights the strength found in being present. This is the story of the Zen master and the strawberries. A student approached his Zen teacher with a troubled mind. "Master," he said, "I have devoted 3 years to studying Zen, but my mind remains restless. When I meditate, thoughts rush in. When I try to stay mindful during the day, I'm constantly distracted by fears about what's ahead and regrets over what's behind. How can I discover peace?" The master listened carefully and then said, "Come with me. I want to show you something." They left the monastery and followed a narrow mountain trail in silence for almost an hour until they reached a cliff overlooking a magnificent valley. Far below, a river twisted through forests and fields, sparkling in the sunlight. The master motioned for the student to sit near the edge of the cliff. Once they were comfortably seated, the master reached inside his robe and took out 2 perfectly ripe strawberries, placing one in front of each of them. "Eat," said the master, picking up his strawberry. Although puzzled by this simple act amidst such a deep question, the student obeyed. He bit into the strawberry and found its flavor astonishing. Sweet, tangy, and richly fragrant. He had eaten strawberries many times before, but somehow this one tasted uniquely different. As they ate quietly, the master observed the surprised delight on the student's face. When finished, the master spoke. "Tell me," he said, "while eating the strawberry, where was your mind?" The student thought for a moment. "It was right here," he realized. "I was fully immersed in the taste." The master continued, "During that time, were you distracted by thoughts of past or future? Did worries or regrets come to mind?" "No," said the student, beginning to understand. "There was only the strawberry." The master smiled. "This is the peace you're seeking. It's not about stopping thoughts or reaching a special state. It's about being fully present with whatever is in front of you, whether a strawberry, a breath, a task, or a difficult feeling. When you are completely present, the past and future cannot affect you. They exist only as thoughts. And when thought fades into pure experience, peace naturally arises." The student raised an objection, but the strawberry was easy to be present with because it was pleasant. "What about when I face something painful or hard?" The master nodded. "A very good question. The practice remains the same, though it is more difficult. Instead of trying to push away thoughts or create peace, he focused on bringing full attention to each moment, each breath, each action, discovering that the peace he sought had been accessible all along in the simplest experiences of life. The Buddha said, "Do not dwell on the past. Do not dream of the future. Focus your mind on the present moment." This teaching shows the direct route to peace, not by escaping what is happening now, but by fully living it. The strawberry symbolizes any ordinary moment, which, when met with full presence, reveals itself as extraordinary. Why do we struggle so much to stay present? Zen Buddhism points to several habits that pull us away from now. First, our mind's habit of time traveling, constantly moving between past and future, reviewing what was or anticipating what might be. This endless mental activity often goes unnoticed, but separates us from direct experience. Second, our tendency to judge experiences as good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, important or trivial. This constant evaluation creates resistance as we reach for what we want and push away what we don't. Third, our search for special moments, the belief that peace or happiness must come wrapped in something extraordinary, causing us to miss the deep beauty found in simple moments like eating a strawberry. The Japanese phrase "ichigo ichi," meaning one time, one meeting, reminds us that every moment is unique and will never repeat exactly. Truly understanding this turns presence from a task into a natural response, as we want to fully show up for each precious moment. Zen cultivates this through meditation and daily activities. In Zazen, seated meditation, we notice when the mind drifts and gently return to breath and posture. In everyday life, walking, eating, cleaning, working, we practice returning to presence. The Buddha taught, the secret of health for both mind and body is to avoid mourning the past, worrying about the future, or anticipating troubles, but to live wisely and earnestly in the present. This wisdom tells us that presence isn't just spiritual, it is the basis of well-being in every part of life. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, can you bring that same attentive presence you had with the strawberry? Feel your body's weight and texture against the bed. Notice your breath's rhythm and your muscles slowly relaxing. As the Buddha said, wherever you are, be there completely. In this fullness of presence lies the peace that has always been here, waiting to reveal itself when we give it our full attention. The Buddha once said, wherever you are, be fully there. True peace has always been present. We only need full awareness to uncover it. Now, Let's dive into a story about removing the blocks that hide our real self. This one is called Polishing the Mirror. A young monk came to his Zen teacher after many years of serious practice. Even with his deep commitment to meditation and learning, he felt that enlightenment still escaped him. "Master," he began, frustration clear in his tone, "I've been practicing with sincerity for 7 years. I follow all the teachings and meditate every single day. I study the sutras with care and devotion. Yet I feel no nearer to awakening than when I started. What am I missing?" The old teacher looked at him kindly. Without responding directly, he led the monk to an old storage room in the back of the temple. There, buried under layers of scrolls and forgotten ritual items, was a very old mirror. It had once shone brightly, but was now dull and coated with years of dust and corrosion. "Do you see this mirror?" the master asked. "Yes," replied the monk, confused by the strange turn. "Was the dust responsible for the mirror's creation?" asked the master. The monk hesitated. "No, of course not. The mirror exists on its own. The dust simply hides it," he answered. "And what would someone need to do to see their reflection in it?" the master asked. "They'd need to clean it, to remove the dirt and polish it," said the monk, beginning to understand the metaphor. The master nodded, handing him a cloth. "Then please, clean this mirror." For days and weeks, the monk diligently worked on restoring the mirror. The years of buildup didn't come off easily. He experimented with different techniques: water, oils, ashes, and polishing pastes. Slowly, with steady effort, the shine returned. After many weeks of steady effort, the mirror was finally restored, its surface now bright and flawless. When the task was complete, the master came to see it. Gazing at the newly polished mirror, he asked, "Did your efforts give the mirror its ability to reflect?" "No," the monk answered. "The mirror always had the capacity to reflect. I just cleared away what was hiding that natural quality." The master smiled gently. "That's how it is with your Buddha nature. Enlightenment isn't something you attain or fabricate. Your true self, radiant, clear, and fully responsive to reality, has been there from the start. The purpose of practice isn't to add something you lack, but to remove the layers that obscure what's always been present." The master went on, "The dust represents your attachments, resistances, and illusions, the mental habits that veil your natural clarity. Your meditation, ethical conduct, and study are simply the cloth you use to wipe the mirror clean. These tools don't create enlightenment. They help uncover your original nature." With this realization, the young monk's entire view of practice shifted. No longer striving to reach a distant goal, he now saw his effort as an unfolding, noticing the dust of old patterns as it arose and gently wiping it away so his Buddha nature could shine through effortlessly. The Buddha once said, "The mind is everything. What do you think? You become." This wisdom highlights how our thoughts can either cover or reveal our true essence. Like layers of dust, our conditioned thinking and perceptions obscure the clear light of awareness that is our natural inheritance. But why does this dust keep piling up? Zen Buddhism points to several reasons for this obscuration. The first is ignorance, avadib, not a lack of intellect, but a basic misidentification of what we truly are. This confusion leads us to mistake the dust for the mirror itself. The second is our repetitive habits. Every reaction rooted in separation, every thought reinforcing a limited self, adds another film of dust. These patterns stack up, forming what feels like a thick coating over our innate clarity. The third source is cultural conditioning, which often tells us we must gain, succeed, and improve, instead of revealing, letting go, and being. We're taught that we need to add more to ourselves to be whole. But the truth is the opposite. It's about removing what hides our completeness. The Japanese word session means touching the mind-heart, a phrase that perfectly describes the act of dusting the mirror. When we connect with the mind-heart directly, we discover what's always been beneath the surface, our original nature, our true face before birth. At its core, Zen practice is a cleansing process. Meditation trains us to witness our thoughts, emotions, and sensations without getting lost in them. Ethical living prevents us from adding more dust through harmful behavior. And teachings on wisdom guide us to look beyond the surface, back to the clear mirror that reflects everything as it is. As the Buddha taught, what we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday. Our current thoughts shape our tomorrow. Life arises from the mind. This reminds us that the dust isn't permanent. It can be removed by being aware of our present mindset and choices. In daily life, watch for the moments when the mirror of your awareness becomes smudged with stress, fear, judgment, or reactivity. Instead of resisting or drowning in these states, try seeing them as passing dust on the surface of your inner clarity. The Buddha said, "Nothing is permanent. All things change. Life is a continuous becoming." This impermanence applies not just to outer events, but to your inner world as well, including the dust that may cloud your natural awareness. So tonight, as you prepare to sleep, imagine the dust of your day, all the thoughts, emotions, and distractions, softly being wiped away, leaving only the clear reflection of your true self. The Buddha said, "Look within. You are the Buddha. The clear mirror of your real nature has always been there, waiting patiently for the gentle act of uncovering." Let us now hear a story about simplicity and direct understanding. This one is called Pointing at the Moon. One evening, a Zen master and his student were walking under a full glowing moon. The night was cloudless, and moonlight cast intricate shadows on the garden path. They walked in silence, but the master noticed the student looked unsettled, his brow tight with thought. "What's on your mind?" the master asked. "Master," said the disciple, "I've been studying the sutras intensely, but the more I read, the more confused I get. Some scriptures stress discipline and effort. Others talk about sudden awakening. Some highlight compassion, others focus on wisdom. I can't seem to find one clear path." The master listened calmly and stopped walking. He raised his hand and pointed to the full moon glowing above. "Look," he said simply. The student looked up at the radiant moon, perfectly round and still. "Tell me," the master said, "are you looking at my finger or at the moon?" "At the moon, of course," the student replied, puzzled by the question. "And did you need to examine or analyze my finger to see the moon?" "No," said the student. "Your finger only indicates the direction." The master nodded in agreement. The sutras, teachings, and methods, they're all like fingers pointing at the moon. They aren't the moon itself. Their purpose is to guide us toward direct experience of reality. But if you fixate on the finger, analyzing it, comparing it, debating its value, you risk missing what it actually points to. Continuing their walk, the master added, "Teachings may appear contradictory because they address different people's needs or different facets of the same reality, like many fingers pointing at the same moon from various angles. But the moon itself is whole, unified, and without conflict. Looking directly at the moon, you see only its pure light, complete and undivided." The disciple became silent, pondering this wisdom. As they walked on, he found himself less caught up in intellectual analysis and more absorbed in the immediate experience of moonlight, the chirping crickets, and the cool evening breeze. For the first time, he realized that the path to wisdom doesn't lie in collecting ideas, but in opening to the direct experience that teachings point toward. The Buddha said, "My teaching is like a finger pointing to the moon. Don't mistake the finger for the moon." This profound guidance cautions us not to cling to teachings themselves, but to let them lead us to reality. Why do we so often confuse finger and moon? Zen Buddhism highlights a few causes for this confusion. The first is our ingrained habit of conceptual thinking. From childhood, we learn to understand the world through concepts and categories. so deeply that we often mistake these mental maps for reality itself. The second cause is cultural conditioning that values knowledge acquisition more than experiential wisdom. Especially in formal education, we are rewarded for gathering facts rather than gaining direct insight. This habit carries into spiritual practice, where we might unconsciously treat enlightenment as just another body of knowledge to accumulate. Third, there's comfort in what is known versus the uncertainty of direct experience. Concepts and doctrines give a feeling of control. They can be grasped and owned by the mind. Direct experience, however, confronts us with the vast unknown, the groundless essence beyond all concepts. The Japanese term shikantaza means just sitting, and captures Zen's essence. Rather than engaging with ideas about reality, we simply sit, allowing experience to arise without interference from categorization. This practice is the spirit of looking at the moon, not analyzing the finger. In Zen, even teachings that warn against attachment to teachings can become just another finger mistaken for the moon. That's why Zen uses paradox, silence, and unexpected actions to disrupt our conceptual mind and point us toward experience beyond words. The master holding up a flower, the teacher's shout, or the sudden sound of a stick striking the floor. These actions snap us out of conceptual thought and into direct perception. The Buddha said, "If you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path." This reminds us that teachings exist to illuminate our journey, not to become objects of fixation. When used as guides rather than goals, they naturally lead us to the clarity they were meant to reveal. On your own spiritual or personal path, notice when you might be focusing on fingers instead of moons. Maybe you get caught up debating theories while missing their practical effect. Or you collect teachings without letting them transform your lived experience. Or perhaps you compare different paths and methods rather than fully walking the one right in front of you. Tonight, as you rest in awareness, can you release all ideas about relaxation, sleep, or these stories you hear? Can you move beyond the fingers of instruction and into the moon of direct experience? The Buddha taught that mindfulness is simply this: